They say a human mind can be the safest place in the world. But when poisoned by addiction, it can also become the most dangerous battlefield. This story is not just about a man losing himself to drugs. It's about how an entire family was dragged into a nightmare because of one man's secret war with his own demons. What would drive a seemingly educated, successful husband and father to turn against the very people he once vowed to protect? The answer lies hidden in a quiet two-bedroom flat in Indirapuram, Ghaziabad, where normalcy was only a mask for chaos waiting to erupt. At first glance, Sumit Kumar looked like any other man chasing success. A B.Tech graduate, he had once been a software engineer earning over a lakh a month. His wife, Anshu Bala, was a dedicated school teacher, nurturing not only her students but also their 3 children, Prathamesh, their eldest son, and the twins, Akriti and Arav. From the outside, they were a family that many envied, well-educated, financially stable, and surrounded by love. But inside their home, something far darker was quietly eating away at their foundation. Sumit's life had not always been easy. Though he came from a respectable family, tragedy struck when both his parents passed away in 2012. With siblings spread across different cities, Sumit learned early on to carry burdens quietly. That silence became dangerous when, during his college years, he fell into the trap of drugs. What began as experimental curiosity with friends in his hostel soon grew into a secret addiction, an invisible chain he never fully broke free from. Even after marriage, even after children, those habits followed him like shadows he could never escape. For years, Anshu suspected something was wrong. She would sometimes find strange pills tucked in Sumit's pockets or notice his late-night restlessness. At times, they argued and she pleaded with him to quit. But whenever she tried to expose his secret to his family, Sumit would cover it up with excuses or promises. On the surface, he looked like a hard-working professional. But beneath that mask, he was sinking deeper into a dependency that consumed not just money, but also his peace of mind. The turning point came when Sumit lost his job in January 2019. At first, he pretended everything was fine. His family believed he was still working, while in reality he was sitting at home, spiraling between failed interviews and long hours of intoxication. The pressure of maintaining appearances weighed on him heavily. His wife's modest salary could barely keep the household running, and though his in-laws quietly supported them, Sumit began to feel like a failure. The more he thought about it, the more he drowned himself in pills and cigarettes, burning away not just his money but also his sanity. By April, the situation had grown unbearable. Anshu's parents had traveled to Bihar for a wedding, leaving the couple alone with their children. With no elders in the house, the tension between husband and wife grew sharper. Anshu, tired of seeing him waste his time and money on drugs, taunted him in anger one evening. "If this is what life with you means, I would have been better off never marrying at all." Those words pierced Sumit deeper than she could have imagined. To a man already broken by joblessness and addiction, it felt like the last straw, the ultimate betrayal from the one person he expected understanding from. As the days passed, Sumit's thoughts darkened. He no longer saw his wife's concern as love, but as humiliation. He convinced himself that his family would never respect him again, that his children would one day see him as a failure. and that the only way to reclaim control was through destruction. He began planning something no one in the world could have imagined, a plan so horrific it would shatter not just his family but everyone who knew them. On April 20th, 2019, he put that plan into motion. After serving dinner, he offered his family cold drinks, except this time the bottles were laced with sleeping pills he had secretly purchased. The children drifted off first, their tiny bodies unable to resist the strength of the drugs. But Anshu, stronger and suspicious, struggled against the fog of drowsiness. As she realized something was wrong, fear gripped her heart. She tried to resist, tried to fight back, but Sumit had already crossed the line of no return. That night, neighbors reported hearing nothing unusual. No screams, no noise, only silence. And within that silence, Sumit unleashed the unimaginable. What exactly happened inside that flat during those chilling hours would soon become a national headline. But the truth didn't reach the world immediately. Instead, it was first revealed in the most shocking way. Through a video that would send shivers down the spines of his siblings, his in-laws, and eventually, the police. On April 21st at around 6 p.m., Sumit posted a video message in a WhatsApp family group. His sister Goody was the first to watch it, and as the words played out, she froze in horror. In the video, Sumit confessed, "I have murdered my wife and children. This is my last message. I am going to drink cyanide. My life is over. Go and collect the dead bodies." For 4 excruciating minutes, his voice carried the weight of blood and betrayal. Goody's hands trembled as she forwarded the clip to her elder brother Amit, who lived in Bengaluru. Within minutes, the entire family was in chaos, desperate to understand if this nightmare was real or just some twisted joke. But when repeated calls to Sumit's phone went unanswered, when both Anshu's numbers were found switched off, and when Pankaj, the closest relative, arrived at the Ghaziabad flat only to find it locked from outside, a chilling dread filled their hearts. Something was terribly wrong. The decision was made to break open the lock. Neighbors gathered, whispering in disbelief until the door finally gave way, and what they saw inside would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The lock clicked open and the heavy wooden door swung inward. What lay behind it silenced the room instantly. From the living room to the bedroom, the once warm and lively flat was now painted in horror. On the floor of the drawing room, in a pool of darkened blood, lay little Prathamesh, his small frame lifeless and cold. In the bedroom, Anshubala's body lay sprawled on the floor, her clothes disheveled, her skin bearing deep wounds from a blade that had struck again and again. On the bed, the twins, Arav and Akriti, appeared as though they had simply drifted to sleep. Except for the pillows pressed tightly against their faces and the bloodstains that told the truth of what had been done to them. The scene was unbearable. Neighbors gasped, some wept, while Pankaj, Anshu's brother, nearly collapsed where he stood. How could this have happened in such a quiet, respectable neighborhood? How could Sumit, the man they all knew as gentle and educated, have committed such a monstrous act? Within minutes, the colony filled with a restless crowd, whispers spreading like wildfire. 4 murders in one night. Someone quickly dialed the police, and soon sirens pierced the air. Inspector Sumit Kumar and his team arrived, their faces hardening as they stepped into the blood-soaked flat. Even for seasoned officers, the sight of 3 innocent children slaughtered alongside their mother was gut-wrenching. But duty demanded calm. The crime scene was sealed and forensic experts were summoned. Every corner of the home was combed. Pill bottles, half-eaten drumstick curry in the kitchen, empty soda bottles, and suspicious-looking medicine strips were collected as evidence. 5 knives were also recovered, 2 of them clearly stained despite Sumit's attempts to clean them. The precision of the cuts told investigators that this was no random attack, but a carefully staged slaughter by someone inside the house. What puzzled the police was the silence of the night. No neighbors had heard screams, no one recalled a disturbance. This pointed to the chilling possibility that Sumit had drugged his family before killing them. The forensic team agreed, suspecting sedatives had been mixed into the food or drinks. But even with this theory, a bigger question loomed over everyone. Where was Sumit now? News spread rapidly through Ghaziabad. By nightfall, the flat at Indirapuram had transformed into a fortress of flashing police lights, curious onlookers, and grieving relatives. Calls poured into Pankaj's phone from across the country. Sumit's siblings, Anshu's parents, extended family, each desperate for answers. By then, Anshu's parents had already boarded a flight from Bihar. They had left days earlier for a wedding, never imagining they would return to Delhi for the funeral of their daughter and grandchildren. The following morning, post-mortem reports confirmed the brutality. Anshu had endured at least 6 knife wounds to her neck and body, suggesting she had fought desperately to resist her killer. The children's cause of death was suffocation, paired with drug traces in their bloodstreams. The time of death was estimated around midnight between April 20th and 21st. The details made the case even more chilling. How could a father quietly drug and then suffocate his own children one by one without hesitation? The coldness of it shook even the toughest officers on the case. Grief quickly turned into anger. Anshu's father, a retired army officer, stormed into the police station demanding justice. He insisted that this was not just a crime of one man, but a failure of the entire family. In his rage, he accused Sumit's siblings of being complicit, saying they must have known about his addiction, his debts, and his violent tendencies. But the police found no evidence linking the siblings. The financial crisis narrative Sumit had used in his video was falling apart. Witnesses from grocery stores, the laundrymen, and neighbors all confirmed that the family paid their dues on time. There was no visible poverty. Something else had driven Sumit into this madness. The search for Sumit intensified. His phone was switched off and both of Anshu's phones were missing from the flat. Investigators traced his call records and found several numbers from Bihar, Bengaluru, Delhi, and Madhya Pradesh that he had been in touch with. One by one, those numbers were checked, but none gave away his location. Then a breakthrough came. For a brief moment, Sumit's phone switched on, pinging from Ratlam, Madhya Pradesh. The lead was faint, but it was enough. Police teams were dispatched immediately, chasing the ghost of a man who seemed determined to vanish. Meanwhile, attention turned to the medical store Sumit had mentioned in his confession video. Hukum Medical Store in Nyaya Khand. A raid was conducted and the truth about Sumit's drug supply unraveled. The store had been illegally selling restricted narcotics for years, and records revealed that Sumit had purchased intoxicants worth nearly 1 lakh rupees. He had even demanded potassium cyanide, but since the store didn't stock it, the owner tricked him with another chemical, charging him as if it were real. This discovery painted a grim picture. Sumit wasn't just a troubled man. He was an addict whose desperation had crossed into madness. As days passed, the police pieced together the chilling timeline. On the night of April 20th, after drugging his family, Sumit had slaughtered them one by one. He then washed his blood-stained clothes, cleaned the knives, and at around 3 a.m., calmly walked out of the flat. He even stopped to chat with the colony guard, casually saying he'd be back soon. Hours later, he boarded a train from Delhi to Trivandrum carrying cash, jewelry, and his wife's phones. And from the safety of that train, he recorded the infamous video that would terrify his family forever. Despite his chilling confession, Sumit did not kill himself. Instead, he vanished into the anonymity of India's railway network, his every move a calculated step to disappear. But fate had other plans. Police across states were alerted with his picture, and officers scanned railway stations for any sign of him. The trail was thin, but hope remained alive. For every grieving relative, for every neighbor who had lost sleep, and for every officer now personally invested in this manhunt, only one question mattered. Would they find Sumit before he vanished forever? The answer came unexpectedly, not from Ghaziabad, not from Ratlam, but from a railway station hundreds of kilometers away. A constable in Udupi, Karnataka, noticed a man who looked strikingly similar to the face he had seen on television news reports. Suspicion turned into certainty after a quick identity check. It was him. Sumit Kumar, the man who had turned his home into a graveyard, had finally been found. But what drove him to commit such horrors? That truth was yet to come out, and it would be even darker than anyone imagined. The manhunt that had stretched across states finally ended on a humid evening in Udupi, Karnataka. A railway constable scanning the crowd of passengers spotted a man whose weary face resembled the one plastered across news channels. His eyes were sunken, his movements restless, his presence almost ghost-like. When asked for identification, he hesitated. That hesitation was enough. He was detained, and his ID confirmed what the officer had suspected. This was Sumit Kumar, the man whose wife and 3 children lay dead hundreds of kilometers away in Ghaziabad. News of his capture traveled fast. Back in Indirapuram, both relief and rage filled the air. Relief, because the killer had been caught. Rage, because it was unthinkable that a father could walk away from the carnage he had created as if nothing had happened. For the families, the grief was still raw, the funerals still fresh in memory. Now they demanded answers. Why had he done it? What kind of madness had overtaken him? And could there ever be justice for such an unforgivable act? When Sumit was brought back to Ghaziabad under police custody, his appearance shocked many. Gone was the image of a neat, educated professional. Before them sat a hollow man, unkempt hair, nervous eyes, and a demeanor caught between arrogance and defeat. During interrogation, he initially remained silent, but eventually the dam broke. What he revealed was not a story of sudden rage, but of years of slow destruction, fueled by addiction, secrecy, and a crumbling mind. He admitted that drugs had been his constant shadow since college. Hashish, pills, alcohol. At first, they had been escapes, indulgences among friends. But over time, they had become chains. Even after his marriage to Anshu, when responsibilities grew, he never truly left them behind. He confessed that Anshu had discovered his secret more than once. Sometimes she pleaded, sometimes she scolded, but each confrontation only deepened the shame he carried. Instead of freeing himself, he sank further, hiding his habit like a man burying a bomb in his own house. When he lost his job in early 2019, everything collapsed. He could no longer afford his addiction, yet the cravings only grew. He borrowed from friends, drained savings, and ran up debts at Hukum Medical Store. The storekeeper later revealed that Sumit had spent nearly 1 lakh rupees on intoxicants in just 2 years. It was a spiral with no bottom. The more he consumed, the darker his thoughts became. He started imagining a future where his children would starve, his wife would despise him, and he would be remembered only as a failure. In that distorted reality, one solution appeared logical to him: end it all, erase the family and then himself. But why the children? Why the wife? Sumit's words chilled the investigators. He said that killing them was not just an act of desperation, it was an act of twisted logic. In his mind, he convinced himself that his children would suffer less if they never lived to see poverty. He claimed Anshu's constant taunts pushed him over the edge. Her words, "If this is what I was destined for, I would have been better off never marrying," became the echo that refused to leave his head. That night, he decided the family's story would end. He described the killings with disturbing calm. First, he mixed sleeping pills into their drinks. When the children fell unconscious, he suffocated them with pillows. He admitted that killing Prathamesh first was deliberate, because he loved his eldest son the most, and by destroying what he valued most, he believed it would be easier to kill the rest. Anshu, however, resisted. She fought back when the drugs failed to fully overpower her. In his rage, he stabbed her repeatedly before finally slitting her throat. The twins, Arav and Akriti, never had a chance. They slipped into unconsciousness only to have their throats cut moments later. After the slaughter, Sumit sat in the blood-soaked silence of his home. He washed himself, cleaned the knives, and stuffed jewelry, cash, and clothes into a bag. At 3 a.m., he locked the door and walked past the colony guard, pretending nothing had happened. Hours later, on a moving train, he recorded the infamous video message confessing to the murders and declaring he would consume cyanide. But he never did. When asked why, he smirked and said he had changed his mind. Death, he realized, was too final. Instead, he fantasized about disappearing, reinventing himself as a wandering saint, living free from family responsibilities and the constant shame of failure. His confession stunned everyone. The court remanded him to jail, and though justice would follow its course, no punishment could erase the horror he had unleashed. Forensic reports confirmed his role, evidence sealed his guilt, and even his own words damned him beyond redemption. Yet for the families of Anshu and Sumit, closure was impossible. Parents had lost their daughter and grandchildren. Siblings had lost trust forever in their brother. The colony had lost its sense of safety. And society was left asking how a man so educated, so outwardly normal, could descend into such unimaginable darkness. In the end, Sumit's case became more than just a story of one family's destruction. It became a haunting reminder of what unchecked addiction, untreated mental health struggles, and hidden despair can do when left to fester. Addiction is not just a personal demon. It is a disease that can consume entire families if ignored. In Ghaziabad, that truth came written in blood. And yet, as the dust settled, one question refused to fade. Was Sumit truly driven only by drugs and despair? Or was there something far darker in him all along? Something that no amount of love, success, or responsibility could have ever changed?